We're going to talk about leaks today, or at least a major leak that came out, and our thoughts on it and some other information around that has been, I don't know, what's the word? What's the word for, is there a verb for detective? Detectived.
Investigated
by the people of the internet. And but we need to introduce ourselves. It's been almost 6 months since we've done an episode of the show, but with a potential E3 reveal of Starfield coming out, we don't know for sure, but looks like it might be a thing that we're getting close to. It looks like we're going to have to start ramping up episodes of this show. So very soon, this might become a weekly podcast. And I hope you guys choose it for your source for any of the lore that we discover underneath Starfield, whatever that might be, but also news and perceptions about the game and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to be here for a while for you guys. I am your host, Tom or Robots, and this is Dave Chaffins from the internet. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing well. You told me that you would introduce me by that title from pretty much here on out. You told me that a while back.
That's because you're famous on the internet.
I'm Dave Chaffins.
You're the internet's Dave Chaffins, yeah.
I was born there, much like Tron. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm not Flynn. I'm much like Tron.
Are you okay? Are you a digital being at this point?
I wouldn't say I'm a fully evolved Digimon, but I'm close.
Okay.
I'm very close.
Yeah. He starts out as a Chaffins, and then he evolves into a Dave Chaffins, and then he evolves into who knows what comes next.
Sir David
Sir David Chaffins is his final form. But oh man. So I have to stretch because Twitch redeemed that. Okay, so I'm stretched out. I'm ready to go. Dave, what are we talking about today? What are we going to discuss?
Elder Scrolls.
The eldest of scrolls.
You asked me that on both the Fallout and Starfield podcasts that we do, and I always say Elder Scrolls because I don't talk about Elder Scrolls, but I could.
You could. But being that this is the Starfield lorecast,
we're gonna be talking about some leaks. We're just gonna be talking about
here
some leaks.
Here, I'm just gonna put this up here for everybody who is currently watching us live at twitch.tv/robotsradio, where we do the show. And if you aren't watching live, I will include the link in the show notes for you to check this out as well. But we'll do our best to describe for your ears to make them work like eyes. So here we go. Podcast image on. There we go. So this is the big leak that supposedly came out a number of days ago now. It's been a few days. And in it, you can see, and this is the full white version, but the actual top portion of that where you don't see any of the drawings and things is actually transparent. So it depends on the background it's on. Which means that this image had been edited a little bit in order for transparency. If you going from left to right, at the bottom left, there is what appears to be an image of a planetary thing or space station or something, some sort of sketch of a building. All of this is done with what looks like pen-like sketches, and then two potential moons or planets in the background, one that is shaded yellowish and one that is shaded reddish. Then at the top left, you have a little bit of text written in kind of a cursive handwriting. To the right of that, there are what appear to be starships, sketches of different kinds of ships that look very, very boat-like, I would say. And then there is what appears to be a seam that runs down the middle as if this is part of like a notebook or something with the number 74573 and then fades from there. It looks like there might be a .4 or something else that goes on after that. And then some writing that says gravitation something. And then what looks like a watch with some circular HUD type objects. And then to the right of that, we have what appears to be a gravitational loop between two objects with what looks like an infinity kind of shape between them. And that runs off the edge of the page.
Like an ellipse.
Like an ellipse. Yeah. So that's what we've got. Now we've got Tress in chat says new Microsoft watch, potentially. Wouldn't that be cool if there was a watch in the game that was like a Pip-Boy that worked like a Pip-Boy, but it was a watch and then you could buy one?
I mean, that would be cool. The thing that I see when I look at it is it's like a Castlevania castle in the bottom left hand corner. You got the castle with the moon.
Yeah, I'm gonna make this bigger, and you can kind of see it.
Okay. That's what I get. But it definitely is probably like a space station of some sort, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
Or a like I've been watching a lot of The Expanse lately, and the way the ships on that show land, they land down on their butts, kind of like the Elon Musk rockets, right?
Yeah.
So it could be a ship that's landed and standing on a planet or something, or it could just be a building that's tower-like.
The Expanse like so good? Isn't it so
such
good?
a good show? I just finished all 5 seasons last night. I just wrapped up the last episode. And
I haven't watched the 5th season, but the one that Amazon did where they're on the colony planet was like it was like some of the best TV. It was great. It's great.
Yeah, no, I love that show. So since this image has come out, there has been a lot of investigation. Gundry asks, where is the pic from? That's a good question. So this pic was, which kind of showed up on the internet. Somebody said they had found it among some files that looked like they were part of Bethesda's CDN. Is that the right? I'm going to mess up some of the terminology here. But when you look at where the picture came from, the actual file data, it shows that it was housed on the same server and in the same folder as Bethesda uses from the server that they host all their images in. And people have done a comparison here of some of the other images on Bethesda.net and some of the other, images for Elder Scrolls and Elder Scrolls Online and Fallout 76 and these kinds of things. And they all have very, very similar file structure. And you can tell where they're all hosted if you look in the metadata. And this is hosted on a similar, basically the same platform. So if this is a fake, then somebody did a really good job to make sure that metadata looked like it came from Bethesda specifically. And I don't know enough. I'm not an internet engineer to know if that part of it can be faked. I don't know if you know more about that than I do, Dave.
No, I don't. I don't know more about that. I don't know more about that than you do. No, data. Let's talk about network security. This is just a network security podcast.
Like, there's no way somebody hacked into their server where they're hosting all their images, implanted it, and then removed it from there. Like that didn't happen. So that lends some credence to it, but there is some other evidence that kind of makes it seem like maybe not so much. So let's talk about some of the other details here. The internet detectives have done a pretty good job trying to figure out where some of these other images came from. So, for example, the ships in the photo are from concept art done by someone named Rick Ruiz-Dana, the last name. And this is an artist that does concept work for, all sorts of things, but these are some starships. And here, tell you what, I'm going to pull up this image as well so you guys can see the comparison while we're doing this. And take a look at this as I pull it up right now, Funk Soul Brother. Here we go.
Check it out now.
Funk Soul Brother.
It's the Robots Radio Brother.
Robots Brother. All right, here we go. So if you look at these sketches, check this out. They look like the same starships. They look like some of the same starships. In fact, the boat one down here in the bottom right corner, these guys, it looks like these are all from the same document, which is signed Rick RD 2013. So this is something that this artist did years ago now. And I'll put the other one back up so you guys can see the comparison, but they are exactly the same. So if you were listening at home or wherever, do know that the images at the top left are exactly the same as those 3 starships in there, and exactly the same spacing as if they were like photoshopped from one document to another. So that lends some maybe not credence. Maybe that goes against the idea that it's from Bethesda, unless Bethesda hired Rick in order to do this and used something that he had previously sketched as some of the potential design work for the game. That could be a thing. Maybe they hired him because they liked the design work and they wanted to use it. Also, they found that the space station is a sketch made by Michael Phillips. So that item that we were talking about that looks like a space station at the bottom left is clearly from here. I'm gonna show this on screen as well, from Michael Phillips, who is potentially somebody who used to work at ZOS, ZeniMax Online Studios. So what does that mean? Like, it seems like his name is associated as a previous employee. And if that's absolutely true. Now, again, all this information comes from the internet, and people who are claiming on Reddit things like, oh yeah, that guy worked at, ZOS, whatever. I can't, for some reason, pull this image up. I'm going to have to save it a different way in order to get it to come up, but it'll come up in a second. What do you think about that, Dave?
It's interesting to me. Okay, if you're going to do concepting, like if you're going to do like concept work, that's happening. I mean, if this stuff is like concept art or something like that, like or like planning out, like that is like, this stuff is it's got to be from like 2016, like right after Fallout 4. Because I mean, this stuff is like pretty rudimentary.
Yeah, they're all basically hand sketches. So if you take a really close look at this image, which is basically the same as what shows up on there, and you zoom into it, it looks like either a very complex looking space station or a bunch of starships floating around, an object floating in the center of the screen with like two moons in the background, which they've now shaded on the final image that we have. But it is very much the same sketch. Like, this is the foundation for the artwork that is in the leak. So somebody who previously worked at ZeniMax Online Studios, which is owned by Bethesda, contributing some artwork to a project that eventually gets used in a document like this, that could totally be a thing.
Or, now that I'm looking at it, I've looked at it earlier today. I'm looking at it again. I'm starting to think that maybe this is not concept art, but it's like something that you see in game. Like in Uncharted, you see like maps and old like drawings of things, and maybe this is like some of the an asset from the game where it's like, okay, this is like a journal of like, okay, because they have to explain how they got to space flight, In order to start, like at the beginning of Fallout, they're like, hey, there was a war. It was a nuclear war. Everyone's dead. We made vaults. That's where you start. Like here, it's not just they're going to drop you off at the ship. Like they've got to kind of explain that. I mean, it's the same thing for Mass Effect. They spend, the beginning of the first game being like, hey, this is how all this works. I feel like this has got to be a part of that. Well, because the thing about it is the watch looks too good. It looks too good.
Right. Well, the watch comes from another source as well, so we're going to talk about that too. But what about this thought here? In the two main Bethesda properties that this team works on, Fallout and Elder Scrolls, there are documents in the game. In Fallout, they come as holotapes and they come as terminal entries. In Elder Scrolls, they're pages. They're pages of books and documents and things that you get. What if this, like you're saying, is the kind of thing that shows up in a document that you can access? And so, like, let's say you find a crashed spaceship somewhere and you check the pilot logs and things like that. And then you look in the pilot's quarters and he has a diary next to him. And this is maybe an entry in that diary where the pilot's been sketching things that he's seen as he's traveled, or things that he works on because he's an engineer, things like that. That would make sense. And to have it, and in order to do a lot of that kind of content, you would need a lot of artistry around sketches for those kinds of things. So why not purchase the rights to use these things from artists who already do this work, whether they work in your studio or not? Just, hey, we want to, can we purchase this, this sketch that you did for, $10, $20, $50, whatever it costs that the artist is selling it for. And that's a much faster way to get that kind of content and to make it look like it's all drawn by different hands rather than just a single artist team.
Yeah. I don't know. That's a good question, because it's like, it goes back to like what kind of resources is Bethesda using for this. So my feeling is it's like all hands on deck. And I mean, this is kind of big picture here, but it's like,
oh, sure.
They're having Maryland, they're having probably their Montreal studio, they're having Austin. I know they got to be having Dallas, because what else are they doing with Dallas? Like all hands on deck for Starfield. And I mean, that comes with its own art team, that comes with its own connections. I'm curious if they are actually paying anyone outside to do like to contract artwork rather than having people in-house do it.
I think,
yeah,
I don't see why they couldn't do both. I think that both things could be possible. In fact, if they were seeking art from external sources during the design phase of the game, which would point back to that 2013 connection to the first Starship picture, then that would make sense, because maybe before they even commit their artists to doing work, they're doing research by just looking up other stuff that's out there. One of the design studios I work for, the marketing agencies, this was part of the process they would go through for their designers, was to put together a design board full of inspiration. And so they would search the internet for inspiration for these things. And then if one of those things was something that they were just like, this looks great, why would we recreate it and steal somebody's work? Especially if it's a company like Bethesda that's trying to be up and up with everything. They're a big company. They don't want to get sued. They get sued by a lot of people about stupid crap. Why not just spend the $10 or $50 or whatever it is to purchase the ability to use that artwork if they want to use it? Plus, then they also have their own team working on stuff. So let's talk about the watch. Here we go. This is an image by an artist in Sweden. I haven't found his name yet, but according to the internet, these are sketches by an artist in Sweden, and you will see that the sketch here circled in the red lines looks a lot like the watch that shows up. In fact, it is the watch, just without the UI details on the face of the watch. And along with this, there are a number of other angles to very similar watches, other sketch designs for variations on that watch. And down here at the bottom, complete other designs for other watches that look a little bit more rectangular or square and things like this. Like this was came from this artist's sketchbook. So again, another external source for this. I'll go back to the original image though, because what that one doesn't have is the details on the face of the watch. And those details on the face of the watch are very, very similar to the UI from the previous leaked images that we saw on the bottom left side of the screen that showed what looked like amount of oxygen or health or a compass. It looked very similar to those. So if somebody actually edited this, well, in either case, someone either intentionally who works in the studio edited that onto the watch to make it look like this is your display, and so it works like a Pip-Boy, but it's a watch, which makes more sense in the real world than a Pip-Boy, because everybody who's tried on one of those Pip-Boy things, they're heavy and they're encumbering, right? They don't really work.
Everyone who bought the Fallout 4 Collector's Edition that was like, I'm going to wear this Pip-Boy every time I played, never wore it after
because they were uncomfortable. They're big and uncomfortable and unwieldy. But like everybody wears watches, and we use smartwatches now, so why not extrapolate that into the future? We know that Starfield is based around a more realistic kind of simulation. They've talked a lot about that. So it would make sense if you had a personal device that you were connected into all the time. Why not put that on a watch? We all already do it. And to have that connected to another device like your phone, like on the Expanse, they have those personal data pads that they use for everything. Like if you had one on your wrist, you wouldn't be able to drop it when you were in space because it was attached to your wrist.
Well, it kind of looks like, okay, first of all, it reminds me of 2002, the seminal film Clock Stoppers. I
don't remember this film. What is this film?
2002 Clock Stoppers was a film about a team of teens that got together and essentially were trying to stop bad things from happening. They had the clocks that would slow down time. And so when you slowed down time, everything around them moved very slow, but they appeared to be moving very fast. Right? And that's what this reminds me of. Now, on a more serious-ish note, the thing that I think is interesting about this watch is the distressing. Like there's if you look at it, it's almost like there's like some colors, almost watercolor, I would say. added to the bottom. The watch face is whatever,
or like shadows. Yeah.
It's not even that. It's like the red around the edge. There's the yellow on the inside, and those are mirrored in the moon over there as this complete piece that leads me to believe that this isn't concept art, because in concept art, you're not adding in that level of detail if you're just having sketches of a thing on the other. This seems like something from the game.
It seems like there's a lot of detail and care put into it. Yes.
Yeah, and to make not necessarily to make it look good, but to make it look like this is somebody's notebook.
Right. Yeah, even the text, the handwriting on it looks like it's all kind of faded and rubbed off. The handwriting on this other side, and this is another detail that we want to go over here, says something like surface that is something it has no, doesn't have any something. And that's about all I can tell from it. But the handwriting matches the handwriting on the other side, which says gravitation, something. And they've added some other little things like numbers underneath one of the boat-like looking spaceships that say 745.3 something.4, which is the same number. It's the 74573.4 that appears as if it's printed on along what appears to be like a seam in between the pages. Which
it makes sense.
Seems very intentional, right? And then at the bottom right here, you have this image, the ellipse. You said this what looks like an orbital pattern between two objects. And according to, I don't have the full image from this, but this actually comes from somewhere else. That is the shape of I think it was like a NASA drawing originally. That is the shape of orbital patterns between the Earth and the Moon, and kind of a reciprocal back and forth pattern shape. So yeah, there's a lot of intentionality here. Even if you look at the paper itself, it's as if somebody took the time to Photoshop in what appear to be like little water damage and aging on the paper itself. And at the top, you can see where everything fades out. There's if you were to consider, say, a half moon shape at the top, that's where the transparency actually happens on the page. And I can't show it here. But the transparency on that happens also on other images that are hosted on the website and are used on Bethesda's website and are used as these, they're not banner images, but like the lead image for like going into a specific page on the website about a new topic. So for example, this image could be the background image behind something else that says like, you know, the engineering behind Starfield. That could be something about like a blog post that they post months from now.
Right.
And so obviously they would be gearing up for any of that. So if we go down the thought path of, okay, in just 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to have E3, and let's say we get an announcement for Starfield. If we get an announcement for Starfield and it does follow the regular trajectory of Bethesda announcements, that means that we will get probably a release window for the fall sometime, because that's what they did with Fallout 4. That's what they did with Fallout 76. This is what they do with these big titles. They make an announcement at E3, they release in the fall. At the latest, it's going to be something like the beginning of next year, probably, because Microsoft seems to be pushing them to get this out as soon as possible. And they were hoping to release it last year, according to some people who have talked about this on the internet, and they weren't able to. So they have now been in bug squashing mode for this year in order to get things out. That seems to be the pace they're on. And if that's the case, then marketing would be gearing up right now in order to do a series of individual releases for blog updates and behind the scenes, and here's some more stuff, because they're going to be in full marketing mode where like every week or two they're going to have something else out there, some new image come out, some new behind the scenes detail, something, right?
Right.
So that all makes sense to me. And the whole CDN thing being from the Bethesda server and the amount of professional quality behind this image makes me think that this may have been an intentional leak. And you and I talked about this a little bit before the show. I've worked in marketing. I think that doing things like intentional leaks are fun ideas. They're fun ways of controlling the narrative, of making sure that only the details that you want get out so that people start talking about it and do like we do on this show and make this a big thing and kind of raise the buzz in a way that feels organic, even though, because who knows who put this out? We don't know.
Right. Yeah. I think that with a company like that, where they have so much money behind a product and they've been spending so much time in the product, I think that they I think in the same vein, they want to control the narrative, like you'd said. But I don't know if you're that big of a company, if like leaks are a thing that you want to like actively put out, because how do you manage that? Like something like Todd Howard's on an interview with, I don't know, Dave Chappelle. I'm just like pulled that one out of the hat. And behind him, there's like a toy that looks kind of out of place, and that's like one of the new rocket ships from the game. Like that's the kind of stuff that I would see where they're like,
yeah, and they've done that. They've done that. Like the Indiana Jones stuff. Like the Todd Howard had like 2 interviews where he had Indiana Jones stuff behind him months before the announcement came out that they're working on a title.
My thought is that I think that this isn't intentional. This level of because this looks like a quality thing. Like this looks like a quality image, and I don't think that they're gonna intentionally leak this level of image out. That's just my opinion.
Well, you don't think that if they had a whole selection of hundreds of images that they've made for the game, that they wouldn't go, we could leak this one out, and it's not going to reveal anything specific enough for anything to be given away, but it will create a lot of conversation, because everyone's going to look at each one of these little things on this page, and they're going to do like we do and dissect it all without ever really gaining any real substantial knowledge about the game. So this image would work great. Let's just let it go.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I have an extensive. I have an extensive 0 years of marketing experience, where as you may have a few more. I'm not sure. I don't.
A few more than 0, yes.
A few more than 0, yeah. I don't know. I don't see how. I don't think that leaks are intentional, and I think that, and that's why it's like. You feel bad. Like some leaks are bigger than others. I don't know. Like, and so some are intentional, maybe some are unintentional at that point. Like, I mean, if we look back on big video game leaks, like Ubisoft is making a Mario Rabbids tactical strategy game. Who saw that coming? Nobody saw that coming unless you got the leaks. Which told you months before that happened that was a thing, and then nobody was as surprised. But I mean, that's a pretty surprising thing to announce and be like, hey, we're making a very much a Mario game with the Rabbids characters, and it plays like XCOM. Like a year before that was released, that would have been like a hilarious thing. You'd have been laughed out the door.
Everybody would be like, no, that's ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there's
that's
like
the
that
thing you invent when you're in 5th grade, and they're like, invent something, and you're like, I'm going to invent a video game that has Mario and the Rabbids, and they're going to play like that game my dad plays, XCOM, and shoot at bad guys. And you're just like, what?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all the details on this specific image that I have to go over, but we have some other information about a copyright that was filed, and we'll get into that after the break, because we got to talk to you guys and tell you how awesome you are. I need to come up with more reasons to use our sound effects.
We have more. We have more.
We do have more. I was going to use the news one, but then I forgot. And we didn't hit it. So
do it when we come back. That's the signal after the break.
Yeah, that's what we'll use. But this is the middle of the show. This is the part where we get to say thank you for listening. You guys are awesome. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the show. I hope you decide to keep coming back, because this will be your source for all the information we could possibly get about Starfield from this point forward. And Dave and I are very excited about the game. We hope that we're going to get the leaks and things that are, that this means that we're getting a reveal at E3 and eventually a release this year, because that would be phenomenal. We would absolutely love that. So, but we do need your help in order to make sure that this show is a success. So please, 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 if you have friends that enjoy Bethesda games, if you're playing Fallout and you like to listen to us on the Fallout Hub, or if you're playing Elder Scrolls, even though Dave says he's going to talk about Elder Scrolls and never does, but I talk about Elder Scrolls on the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. If you like any of these other games, and you have friends that play these games, let them know about the Starfield Lorecast. Please, please, please. It would help us a ton. The only way that these shows become successful is because of you guys. And so we really, really do appreciate the help. So thank you so much for all of that. Let's move on to more news.
On the night of June 10th, 2018, Bethesda gave us a glimpse at their new space-based RPG. Ever since then, we've been piecing together information in a series that we call Star Clues.
So we have another Star Clue here. There was a copyright filed for Starfield that points also to a potential release date. This copyright is for 2021. And the information around copyrights goes like this. If a copyright is put into a year, then that means that the person filing the copyright, or the business, intends for something to be published with that copyright within that year. So the first thing that this points to is, oh, good, we're going to get an actual game release in 2021, right? Which would point to the whole Bethesda going to E3, talking about Starfield, game coming out in the fall. Or early winter, like December 30th at the latest, that kind of thing. What do you think, Dave? Do you think that this is thing? I mean, there is a copyright now, or does it mean just something like they're going to put out like a book of like developing Starfield before the actual game releases?
I mean, I have, we'll get into like the what we think all of this means, and kind of like, center ourselves, because I feel like at the end, towards the end of the show, we need to like center ourselves and like get a path for everybody forward, of like the speculation and stuff. But on this specific thing, if you're putting a copyright on something and you go play any game and you look at the copyright on a game, even from, whatever year, it's always going to be the year that it released. You're not going to put a copyright on something that doesn't have anything like any kind of content with it. And they're not going to release a development book. This is not, I mean, I guess they could make some Funko Pops or something beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, that does happen. Like, we do get leaks from like Funko Pops. Like, Game of Thrones was the ending with Bran being the king. Oh God, spoilers if you haven't watched Game of Thrones yet.
It's not even, just ignore that last one. Just ignore that last.
Don't even watch the last 2 seasons. It's not even worth it. But that was leaked on a Funko Pop. Yeah, so maybe it's that. But here's the image on the screen. And for our listeners, it says ZeniMax.com, Starfield, trademark, in development, copyright 2021 Bethesda Studios LLC, a ZeniMax media company. Starfield and its logos are registered trademarks or trademarks of ZeniMax Media Incorporated in the US and or other countries, all rights reserved. So this is an official copyright. This has been actually submitted and exists now and is a real thing. So now the other side of this is that it may signal intentionality to release in 2021, but whether that's actually followed through with, like, they could still delay it.
So I don't think they're going to delay it. And here's why. I think that they are gonna. Here's my bet. They're gonna release it, or not release it, but announce it at E3. It's gonna be released sometime in the fall. Every single Bethesda studio is working on this. Mm-hmm. Even the Fallout 76 studio, they're working on this. They're like, everybody, like, it's all hands on deck to get this game out, because this has been in development for years and years and years, and they're trying to finish up this product that they have done most of the work of solo, and now they're going into the Microsoft era where they are owned by them and have the funding and can actually like change how they're thinking about their products and look into think about all of their series holistically with more money in mind. And I think that they want this out the door because this is kind of like the last thing that like in their heads that Bethesda independently does.
Right.
And they want to move on from that.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think that that all of this signals that there is intentionality to get it out this year. And, you know, being that this is May 11th that we were recording this. So we have 6+ months left in the year, 6 months and like 3 weeks left in the year. So that most studios 6 months before release of a game are in the final phases of making sure that the game is polished and that all the bugs are squashed. All the content is there. All the quests, all the assets, all the voiceover, all of that stuff by this point in the game would be complete, and they would just be at a point where they are squashing bugs and making it run, 10% faster than it was before, and making sure that there's no glitches when you get in your space chute or your space chute. When you get in your space chute. Yeah, your space chute. That is a new thing. We just discovered a new thing.
Welcome to the cult of astrology.
We just discovered a new thing. In the game, there will be space chutes. And you get in them and they will launch you at very, very fast speeds across the universe. They're called space chutes. They just shoot you out.
If you have space chutes, do you have ladders as well?
Yes. Because the game Space Chutes and Ladders is very popular among children in the future. Yeah, a space ladder is kind of like the opposite of a space elevator in that it helps you descend back to a planet.
Yeah, I'm with it. I'm 100% sold on space chutes. I'm 100% with it.
We're now completely sidetracked. I don't know what I was even talking about. You have your spacesuit. Bugs with spacesuits. You get in your spacesuit, like kind of like power armor, or you get in your spaceship, or you're building your spaceship, which is probably going to be a thing because another little side note here. Bethesda put out a poll that asked how much time they spend building their spaceships, which doesn't make any sense because there's no spaceships in their other games. You don't build spaceships in Fallout 76. You build camps.
Right. To which I say, I spend a lot of time building my spaceship. I spend the most time building my spaceship is what I wish I would say if I had the game Starfield in my hand.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I spend all the time building my spaceships. And then I get in my space chute and I shoot across the universe.
To go build another spaceship.
Yep. So, yeah, like Futurama. Yes, MW.
Yep.
Yeah. So now that we're in the realm of the cult of astrology, not astronomy, astronomy. That's a brand of delicious snacks in the future.
No. Astronomy. That's the Spanish word for star.
Oh.
Plus me. So that's either a great Pokemon or a snack for Starfield.
Yep. So we've discovered more things. It's too bad we don't have Toon here to do drawings of these things for us.
That's true. That's true. He's very good at drawing. I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
And we haven't really talked about it, at least in my memory. Do you think that Starfield is coming to the PlayStation world?
Yeah, I think that's the last thing we need to discuss on this episode because that's the thing that we don't have confirmation about either.
I want to talk to you about that, and I kind of want to get a feel for what you think this just kind of like an all-encompassing. What do you think the release of this game looks like from announcement to putting it out?
I gotcha. Okay, so yes, I do think it is coming to PlayStation because Microsoft said when they acquired Bethesda that they were going to fulfill any prior commitments. And my belief is that Bethesda would be absolutely ridiculous if they hadn't talked about putting this on the PlayStation before they were purchased by Microsoft. Like that would have been a conversation they were having between the studios and what that would look like and if they're going to get, an early release or whatever. Like, so,
right.
at the end of the day, I believe that it will come out for Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. Now, obviously, it's going to be part of the Xbox Game Pass, and PC is probably going to have access to that too, would be my guess. And maybe that gets an early release compared to PlayStation in order to kind of push more people onto that platform. But I think that eventually it will come out on PlayStation, and it's not going to be too much later than when we'll see it for Xbox and PC. As for the complete roadmap from this point on, I think we will get an announcement and reveal at E3. I think that we will get some marketing and a marketing push over the next 4 months or so, and that they're going to have it out for the holiday season this year. I also think that that's important from a morale standpoint for the team to get this out. I think for people's anticipation and wanting of things like Elder Scrolls 6, because if they can push this out and get it behind them, then they can work more on Elder Scrolls 6. They can shift the team over to full work on that and maybe get that out in the next few years, because people will really, really, really want to see that as soon as possible. And there's that tone from the community of like, oh my God, why are they working on this Starfield game? All I want is another Elder Scrolls. Why are they going to take 10 years between Elder Scroll releases, or 12 years or 15 years? You know, like that's the whole thing, right? But if this game comes out and is awesome, and people go, oh no, this is really good, I'm glad they put it out, then they're going to be okay with waiting a few more years for the next Elder Scrolls. So that's important as well. So that's kind of the roadmap I see. Plus, it gives them the typical ramping up over the next X amount of months before the game releases, and really, building the marketing for it.
I'm very much on the same page of you with all of that. I think there's going to be some different things with the reveal at E3. They're going to have to convey how this game plays, because they haven't had to do that with Fallout. They didn't have to do that with Elder Scrolls, because everybody's played Elder Scrolls and Fallout. They know how that, mechanically, Fallout 4 has some changes from 3 in New Vegas, but you understand the basic layout. Same thing for Oblivion to Skyrim. Like, you understand how those games work. They're going to have to explain and dig into detail about what this game is, because how do you do that in an all digital event? Like, how do you?
You have somebody you have Todd Howard or whoever pick up a controller and play it. Mm-hmm. And they run around and they do things, and they show you different clips of different things, just like you would have on the previous shows highlighted different aspects that were different from previous games, because most of the time they did that. So like if you go all the way back to the Skyrim reveal, they're like, hey, you get to run around in Skyrim instead of in Cyrodiil, but check this out, there are dragon shouts, throw, and they're like, oh, that's really cool, and you can wield a weapon in both hands. Oh, that's really cool. Like, that's the stuff they pointed out that was different. So I think they'll do something very similar. We know it's the same game engine. We know it's probably going to be a first person game. They're going to show you running around, but then they're going to be like, but check this out, you can build a spaceship, you can launch it, you can plan a trajectory to another planet, or the conversation system works like this. So there should be it's still foundationally going to be similar to the other games. It's just going to be there, I'm guessing, have a lot of new systems that we haven't seen before, because it's a completely different setting, and it's, like they've said, the biggest technological leap that they've made since like Morrowind.
Right. They're going to have a hard time of how they're going to put that out there for people to like get it. Because like normally at these big conventions, you're a journalist, you go behind closed doors to look at stuff. Anything that's like coming out like that year, like when they do, I forgot like for like a big Bethesda game, they're gonna have like people played Doom Eternal the last time they had like an in-person show, and they played a ton of Doom Eternal, had a lot to talk about. With this one, where it's all digital, not a lot of people are like, how do you function with that? And I kind of had this wild idea of something they might try. If you want to drive, because I think this is coming out on all the systems. I think this is they have spent years making this game. It's gonna come out, and we've seen that like Psychonauts 2. Isn't out yet. It's being made by Double Fine. They're a Microsoft-owned studio. That's coming out in PlayStation because they had a FIG campaign, which is like a Kickstarter-esque thing, for the PlayStation version. So they're making a game under an Xbox Studio. It's coming out on PlayStation. And same thing for In Exile's Wasteland 3. That's on PlayStation as well. So my thought is, okay, what can we do? How can we like reward or necessarily say, okay, our future is with Xbox, like as Bethesda? I think that Game Pass owners are going to be able to get a small demo of Starfield.
You think so?
Day and date they announce.
Yeah, you think they'll just download like a 15 gig, like here's the first hour of the game.
Or like here's like it seems like there's a lot of space stations. That's one thing that's confirmed. Is there will be a space. I have seen a space station with my eyes, and I think that it's going to be something like that, where it's like, here is a demo. It's going to be free for Xbox Game Pass owners.
Right.
And they did that. They did much a similar thing, and they gave me the idea because they just released Resident Evil 8, and that had an exclusive PlayStation 5 demo that maybe lasted 15 or 30 minutes, like depending on if you just walked around and you were like, oh, look at this like gold can and the floor, isn't that cool? I think that they're going to do something like that.
Yeah, even if it was just like here's the character creator and now you can walk around your introductory spaceship or station or whatever. Yeah, that would be awesome. Also, because the Microsoft stuff was wrapped up a few months ago, that might give them enough time to package that up into a demo release, because it takes a few months to take a chunk of a game and, section it off for a demo. Like that takes part of the team really focusing and being able to do that. So,
right.
Yeah, that could be a thing. That would be really cool. I would poop myself a little bit of poop, but yeah.
They have to communicate that they are, because the game is a lot of like big industry insiders and stuff industry insiders, I put in quotation marks, are being like, this is going to be an Xbox exclusive. And I think that it's going to be a game on Games Pass. It comes day and date, and PlayStation owners and people that want to actually buy the game are going to pay $70 now. The games are charging. Like you want to come to the Starfield party, you just got to pay the price and you're there. And this will probably be the last, this may be the last like game that Bethesda puts out on the PlayStation ecosystem or whatever that may be.
There's the other one, Deathloop. That's definitely going to be.
Well, Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo are both PlayStation exclusives. Right.
So they have to be, but
right.
Well, yeah, potentially, unless we get Game Pass on the PlayStation, which I think would be awesome.
I mean, I'm interested in what they're going to do with Elder Scrolls and Fallout. I feel like it's a no-brainer to make it Xbox and PC exclusive, of essentially saying, okay, this is our flagship, and we're going to move this forward. That makes a ton of sense. When you've spent so much time with development, Starfield, though, when you've already you've put a good amount of resources already of like making a PlayStation version. Like game development is not like I'm going to make a game and then decide at the very end who I'm going to send this to.
Right.
No,
right.
That's not.
Right.
That's not.
You've already been working on it. You've been QAing it. You've been fixing bugs. You've been for every single version. This is something we talk about on the Cyberpunk Lorecast. They even have in the show notes where they, like the Stadia version gets updates, individual unique updates, which like even that I'm just like, isn't it just running like the PC version on a server? No, it has a very specific edition just for Stadia, which is kind of like, man, every time you splinter out to a new platform, that's just more development. So
right. So I think though, with having that release idea, they got to have something for Xbox people where it's saying, okay, you have chosen to be a part of people that already have a Series S or X, or that's the next gen version, right? Yeah. I get confused.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Because there's the Xbox One, the Xbox One S, Xbox One X.
Yes,
that's the joke.
It's very confusing.
It's very confusing. So people that already have that, they want to be able to reward. And be like, you're in this ecosystem, you're going to get Bethesda games, and this is going to be the place to play it. I think a demo makes the most sense.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I would love for that to exist. So Bethesda, I know you're listening. Let's get a demo. I'd also love to hear our listeners' thoughts on this. Join us on the Robots Radio Discord. There are already over 1,400 people on the Discord. There is a channel specifically for the Starfield Lorecast. We'd love to hear your thoughts on these leaks and any other information you have, especially if you've got information that we haven't talked about that's brand new. We'd love to call you out on a future episode of the show and say, hey, so-and-so pointed this out to us. It's a really cool thing we have to talk about. But just in general, like, what are you expecting for the game? Like, where do you want this to go? Do you think it's going to be out this year? What are your thoughts on that? But anyway, thanks for everybody for tuning in. I think that's all we got for this episode. We'll be back soon. I have
one more piece.
Yeah.
And this is the wildest idea, and I had it, and I'm gonna roll with it. So let's take you on a scenario. I want to roll one last final scenario to like really get everybody riled up.
Mm-hmm.
If you are Bethesda, you recently sold your company. You're needing money to develop games, so that's why you signed an exclusive with Sony for a year to do Deathloop, to do Ghostwire Tokyo, to like finance these games, right? What if you need the same thing for your next Bethesda game? And what if Starfield is a timed PlayStation exclusive? What if? People are like, oh, nobody's talking about that. You don't hear anybody talking about that. But we don't know, when they said prior agreements, we don't know what that could mean. They haven't said a pip about Starfield.
That's true. Like I was saying, they would have been negotiating this stuff already for a while. So
right.
Maybe, although I would think that PlayStation would have followed up with that once the rumors started coming out and been like, by the way, we have a agreement. This is where you're going to, don't worry, PlayStation fans, you'll still get Starfield and you'll get it earlier than everyone else.
Wouldn't that be like the most like heel turn, wildest thing possible? Isn't that like, I mean, if we go deep in the pit of Starfield, which is what we're here to do.
The Star Pit.
That's what the Star Pit. We're down in the Star Pit. We took the Star Chute down to the Star Pit.
We've got our Star Facts going. Yeah.
We got our Star Facts. But like, what if? What if that is the thing? Like, there's so much that we don't know about this gigantic business deal that it's just insane to me. It's insane to me that like this like. And now you got like Sony's MLB The Show coming out on Xbox systems because the Major League Baseball wanted to publish it, like the baseball company, not the company that made the game, wanted to publish it on their side. This is a wild time.
Dogs and cats
I'm trying to say.
Living together. Mass hysteria. Fragile
Mass
Shark
hysteria.
In chat says, if Microsoft allowed Starfield as a PS exclusive, I'd eat an entire knit hat on video. And we have that now. Visual evidence of this being said. So
that's right.
Fragile Shark. I hope that is not true for your own digestive needs.
I mean, there is a slight possibility because it's like Microsoft and Sony are having great times, but they're both playing very different games. Sony's really not trying to acquire, like they're not trying to like purchase up they don't need to, like that Xbox needed to like get some fresh IP, get some fresh talent, get a bunch of stuff, like really build up that, like they needed that. And Sony is more like, okay, we're going to finance this game from these people over here. And over here, we're going to finance this game for these people, like, and kind of like behind the scenes build that. I mean, now it's like, you know, technically they Sony financed No Man's Sky and have stuck with that investment. That investment has paid off for them because the game has been so successful. And on the other end, you've got like, what was it? Like that Housemarque game, Returnal. That's like a big sci-fi shooter thing on the PlayStation right now. That company, the people that make the game aren't owned by Sony. They just like they were like, hey, we want you to make a game. What ideas do you have? Here's some money. So, I mean,
yeah, I don't know. We could see anything. I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts on this, and if they think Fragile Shark could actually eat a knit hat, an entire knit hat. We're talking like human sized knit, like a little baby one, like adult sized knit hat.
An entire knit hat.
Mm-hmm. I don't know
I
how
have one of those.
I don't know how you eat that.
Maybe I'll wear it next show.
Chop it into
Maybe
little
I'll
bits.
send him. I can send him. My wife made that, so she would probably be a little upset if I sent her knit hat that she spent months making to someone that I knew over the internet because I wanted to see them eat it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not.
Yeah. Crystal says, Crystal's going to eat a top hat, it looks like. Or a fruit bowl hat. Well, a fruit bowl hat seems to make more sense.
But if it's rubber fruit.
If it's rubber fruit. Yeah, like fake rubber fruit, or like, like the peaches with like the suede on the outside or whatever that makes them feel soft and fuzzy.
Yeah.
Ooh, I don't know.
Weird. That's a weird feeling. It's like fun to touch, but then when you think about your tongue touching it, you're like,
Nope. Not the mouthfeel on that is all wrong. Well, Dave, it's time to get going. You got anything else going on you want to share before we head out?
Got episodes of Vault Boys coming out every week. That it's been a while since we've done a show. So I do a podcast called Vault Boys, and right now we've been investigating weird news from around the world and bringing those news stories and kind of getting our takes on them. Most recently, we talked about a Lego thieving craze and why we think that might be like a good beginner way to get into, like, in the Ocean's 11, when you have like the people stealing $5 billion necklaces, like how do you get to that level of thievery without hurting people? And we think that maybe that's Legos, and there's a whole discussion behind that.
Okay, I'll have to tune into that.
You can check out,
because I have no idea what that means. Dave and I are also on the Fallout Hub, which comes out bi-weekly, so every other week. If you enjoy Fallout 76 and you want to hear about all the latest news and details on that game, you can check that out. It's available everywhere. I do pretty much almost all of the Lorecast type podcasts on the internet. There are some that I don't do, but chances are if it has Lorecast in the title, I do it. That includes Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Cyberpunk, Dungeons and Dragons, Starfield now, Mass Effect, and soon The Witcher. That'll be a new one coming out this summer. So yeah, go check those out. They're a lot of fun. I do them with different co-hosts, and we talk about the lore of all these different games, and it's a fun time. So and informative. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will see you next time on the Starfield Lorecast. We should be back sometime in the next week or two with the next episode. And until then, stay safe. Don't go in your space chute without your space helmet.
Yeah.
Did you have something else, Dave?
Just don't let the good Lord shoot you where the pit in facts puts you.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. We hope that you enjoyed this show.
Did you know that parodies are copyright protected?
Tell a friend and review
On iTunes
Or other services.
Dave and Tom excited for Starfield. Let's all speculate and wear no shoes.
Hey, why aren't we wearing any shoes?
Because shoes rhymes with iTunes, and that's the best I could think of.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.